In this video, I'm gonna show you how to make the easiest and most delicious plant-based meat filling for a döner kebab. This is a super low effort recipe as everything is done in the oven and it only requires easily available and natural ingredients. It is with good reason that different variations of sandwiches with the golden combination of bread, meat, fresh veggies and a sauce are found all over the world. Here in Copenhagen, the Turkish German style döner kebab is probably the most popular street food. But unfortunately, there aren't many good plant-based variations. You can always get a falafel, but sometimes you crave something a bit more juicy and meaty in texture. Therefore, I had to come up with a recipe that really scratches that itch. The filling is made from mushrooms and tofu and is super easy. Start by slicing up some mushrooms. I don't think this recipe benefits that much from super fancy mushrooms, so I use about 150 grams of the cheaper ones. I also add 1 red pepper cut into strips, 1 medium-sized onion, and about 3 fat cloves of garlic. These are gonna caramelize nicely and add some sweetness and textural variety to our filling. To make a satisfying döner, we also need some protein. Break a 200-gram block of extra firm tofu into little chunks. Of course, you could cut it into cubes, but it looks more unnatural and has less of the gnarly edges that are going to carry our marinade and get nice and crispy. You can play around with the seasoning as you like, but a good base mix I find is a half teaspoon of cinnamon and 1 teaspoon each of crushed chili, orrrregano, cumin, and smoked paprika. Black pepper is always nice, and then it's time to make the magic happen. 40 grams of soy, 50 grams of neutral oil, and 50 grams of either potato or cornstarch are added to the mix and stirred up until everything is nice and lubed up. This mixture of soy, oil, and starch does 2 things to the tofu. First of all, it makes everything sticky and makes the spices adhere better to everything. Secondly, it creates a surface that will caramelize quicker than the tofu itself, making sure that the tofu gets nice and crispy and stays super juicy instead of becoming dry and rubbery. When everything is stirred up, you can spread it out on a baking sheet. We want to achieve as much surface area as possible, so it is important that you spread it out nicely. Throw your tray of tofu into the oven at 200 degrees Celsius with the fan on and let it roast for about half an hour. While my döner mix is in the oven, I can quickly whip up some condiments. You want some sauce. 50 grams of tahini receives the juice of half a lemon. Always buy a tahini that looks nice and pale. I might be a bit of a bigot, but I find that the darker versions of tahini that you find at Overprice in the organic section are quite shite for making sauces. They are darker in color because the sesame seeds weren't peeled before being turned into a paste, and that leaves a dry, bitter and flowery mouthfeel that is the opposite of what we're looking for here. Anyway, season it with some salt and pepper and maybe a bit of honey or sugar. And when tahini is mixed with liquid, it counterintuitively becomes thicker as the carbohydrates start sticking to each other, resulting in a thick paste. If you keep adding liquid, however, little by little, it will at some point become more fluid, so add water until you have your desired texture. In my opinion, it should feel nice and creamy, but be thin enough that it will spread out nicely into the döner. Finally, check for seasoning. You want it to have a fresh, acidic and nutty flavor, and mine needed a tad more lemon. There is no such thing as a sandwich that doesn't benefit from a spicy element. So of course we have to make a chili sauce. To make it, you need about a deciliter of oil on a medium heat, along with 3 big tablespoons of crushed chili pepper flakes. I like to use a Turkish variety that definitely has a kick but isn't overwhelmingly spicy, because I like to have a bit more chili flavor without dying from spice. But find what works with your personal spice tolerance. For some extra flavor, I added a couple of crushed garlic cloves with the skin on. You could also do pressed garlic, but I was feeling lazy. I also had a sprig of rosemary that was dying, so why not throw it in there? A little pinch of orrrregano never hurt anyone, and sometimes I add other spices like cinnamon, clove, or smoked paprika, but I feel like keeping it simple today. After about a minute, I add 2 tablespoons of tomato paste and fry that for another minute. Give it a final pinch of salt, and then your sauce is done, and it will stay good in the fridge for quite a while. 30 minutes have now passed, and damn, that looks sexy. The onions are caramelized, the peppers are roasty and juicy, the mushrooms bring some umami, and the tofu is soft on the inside and crispy on the outside. A few burnt bits is only a good thing, and if the tofu doesn't sound like this, it's a sign that you might need to give it a few more minutes. Mine was looking perfect, so I chopped it up and set it aside. I can't stress enough how low effort this is, and the value is just off the charts. Personally, I'm not a big fan of most store-bought meat substitutes. I'm not a big fan of seitan and all these flour-based products. This right here, it has protein, it has vegetables. It's awesome. You can use it in many different ways, but for the döner you want some warm pita bread or flatbread. I always start with some hummus, then chili, iceberg lettuce, our döner mix, tomatoes, cucumber, and then some cabbage that I've just pickled quickly in some vinegar and sugar. A generous layer of our tahini sauce, some raw red onions, squeeze of lemon, and then it's time to roll it up, baby. Trust me on this one, folks, this is a banger recipe. You might have to try it out with a few different brands of tofu, as they all have different water content and texture, but once you've found one that works, you'll be making this all the time. Thanks for watching!